Mm, mm.
Melvin, can you mute yours because we're live now? All right, just connecting to one more group, y'all.
Mhm.
And I believe I am a little delayed. All right, you guys. Hi, everyone. So we are coming together for our legacy slash community builder session. We typically have discussions every here and there. How do I sound on the sound, you guys?
That
Good.
And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our night started. And Aaliyah will actually be opening us up with her first talk and what she'll be sharing on today. She can give us a brief of what she'll be discussing. And then after she share, I'll go ahead and I'll be sharing on tonight.
okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Whoever's all here. My name is Aaliyah Phillips. I am a financial advisor, and I have been in the finance industry for 11 years. Started off with mainly insurance, and just a little bit of background before I go into what I'm going to talk about. Started off with mainly insurance, and I got into this industry, well, mainly because I needed a job. And I needed a job, and I was recruited by a company, and they were telling me about all this money I could make, but I just had to take this course and get this license first. And that was 11, almost 12 years ago. And I took the course. And as I was taking the course, it was talking about life insurance. And as I'm taking the course and learning all the things just about life insurance and what it can do, I just thought it was just an amazing product that everybody needed to know about. I just was like, why isn't anybody talking about this? Like, people should be, I need to shout this from the rooftops. I need to educate my community. I need to tell more people about this. Um, and the reason why, and I'm going to go into it, but and I'll tell you a little bit more about the reason why, because what I'm going to be discussing today is building wealth that lasts and helps break cycles of financial struggle and dependence. And the reason life insurance comes into play is because me personally, I think life insurance just forget let's separate it out from financial planning for just a second. Let's take a second and just talk about just life insurance. I think life insurance is the easiest and quickest way for people to start building wealth in our community. It's the easiest way. The only thing that we are guaranteed in this life is death. That's the only thing that we are guaranteed. So if every time one of us died, our families were receiving a lump sum of cash to put back into our community, put back into the economy, and just to give us a head start, that would really change the trajectory. I think life insurance is the key to closing the wealth gap. That among other things, like of course, general financial planning in general. There's a whole bunch of things that need to be done, but I think the easiest, most accessible thing to do is for everybody to get a life insurance policy. And not for me. I don't sell insurance anymore, so I have no, I have no dog in the fight. I'm just here to educate. When people hear about life insurance, the first thing they think about is death. You die, your family gets a whole bunch of money, and people don't talk about all the things that go into it and how you can take advantage of it while you're living. When we look at when I'm saying our community, I'm speaking to the Black community. I'm just going to be real and put it out there. I know it's live. I know it's probably not politically correct, especially in this environment with the way they roll back DEI and those kind of things, especially with everything that's going on under this administration. I probably shouldn't just be addressing, but I'm Black. We're going to talk about how to help Black people, and that's why I got into this industry. I think that if every time one of us was shot and killed in the streets, a life insurance company had to pay out $1 million or even $250,000, people would start to look into why this group of people is dying at this rate and why these companies have to keep paying out all of this money. Now, when people think about life insurance, the first thing people think about is how expensive it is and what it's going to cost. But in the past, I've been able to insure clients for $250,000 for $10 a month if they're healthy. Now, there are a lot of things that go into getting a life insurance policy, and that's not all financial planning is about. What life insurance is just the foundation. I feel like money is fairly new to us. Money is fairly new to Black people. We were working for free for years and years and years. And the way I look at it is the reason we struggle with money, the reason we have a different idea of what wealth is. So let's take it back for a minute. Imagine you're a slave and you're working these hard, long hours, you getting scraps to eat, getting all the scraps, and you seeing your masters and you seeing these white people pull up on these horse-drawn Mercedes-Benz carriages. And you think that that's wealth. You think what you see, the nice dresses, the nice clothes, the fancy bags, the cars, you think that that's wealth. You don't see what's under it. I like to think of it as an iceberg where you see the cars, the clothes, you see that's just the very tip of the iceberg. You don't see everything that's the mass that's under it, the foundation being your life insurance, your annuities, your health insurance, your disability insurance, your 401ks, your stocks, your investments. All of those things need to be in place before we start buying all the fancy stuff. And that's what we don't know, because we just see, we see what we see. So we see our athletes, we see the cars, the Gucci bags, and all of those things. But that's not wealth. That's just stuff that's for show. The true wealth is really what's under the surface. Financial planning starts with protecting what you have. And that's not just life insurance, that's disability insurance, that's long-term care, short-term and long-term disability, health insurance. And a lot of people take for granted the Affordable Care Act. Health insurance is accessible, and so many Americans don't have it because they just really don't know how the Affordable Care Act works and how to get into that. Before you can start growing your money, you have to protect what you have. You have to budget, you have to plan, you have to save. And it's hard. I get it. It's hard. I come from poverty. I grew up in North New Jersey. I was poor. I was poor. We was poor. It is what it is. It's hard. And New Jersey is expensive. And it's very, very expensive to be poor, because the poorer you are, the more you pay in fees. You pay for being poor in other ways. But you have to start with a plan. We have to start with a plan. And that's with anything. That's when you're going into business, when you're trying to get out of a situation, and you first need a plan. And before we even could go into planning, you need to know what you want. What is it that you want? Is it the house? Is it the cars? Is it the clothes? Is that something that you want? How do we get there? We can't just say, all right, I want these houses, I want these clothes, I want these cars, get a lump sum of money and start going and buying it. You have to protect what you have, especially if it's very little. If you're working paycheck to paycheck, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you can't afford to miss a day of work because that'll really set you back, then imagine if your family if your family lost you, and you don't have those protections in place. How would that in place? How would that impact your family? So financial planning, it starts with your basis. It starts with first creating a plan, creating a budget. And it's easy to say, oh, I know this costs this much. I know this costs this much. I can afford all that. But you really need to take a minute and sit down, look at what you're bringing in versus what is going out, and write it down. Write it down. So how much is your rent? How much is your car note? How much are you paying for your lights, your gas, your electric? Write it all down. Everybody should know off the top of their head how much their expenses are every month. Off the top of their head, you should be able to say, my expenses every month are $2,500, $3,000, and I bring in this much every month. You should know that. When you know what you have, you can see where it's going, and writing it down gives you a clear picture. And that's something that I help people with for free. Budgeting and planning. That's the first step towards any type of financial planning. And once you have a plan, you can see what to do. Then it's protecting what you have, especially if you have very little. Protecting what you have, your greatest asset is your ability to earn an income. So before we can even talk about life insurance and dying, what happens if you were to get sick or injured and you can't earn an income, but you're still living? So those same bills are still coming in every single month, but you can't work because you're sick or you're hurt. That's where disability and health insurance and stuff comes in. And it's a lot of times people get these things through their jobs, and that's great, but we also need to make sure that if I leave that job or if I lose that job, that I don't lose my health care, I don't lose my life insurance, I don't lose those things that are keeping my family safe. Your greatest asset in life is your ability to earn an income. If you can't earn an income, you can't feed your family. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. It's a capitalist society. It sucks, but that's just the way it is. So first, creating a budget, creating a plan, and then ensuring that plan. Now, once you have all of those protections in place, that's just the foundation. Your next step is growing your income. Now that you have protected everything, what's left? You have your savings. You have 6 months worth of savings up. And I know I'm a little bit all over the place because I didn't really have a plan for how this conversation was gonna go. And I don't have any prompts. I don't have anybody asking, I don't have any questions, or I'm just talking, speaking what I know. I don't even know who's listening. I can't see nothing but me and Quadera on this screen. So
that's okay.
I'm just talking. And but yeah, creating your plan, that's your foundation. Creating your budget, creating your plan, making sure you have 6 months worth of savings set up. And if you can't, six months worth of savings, that's a lot. If 6 months worth of expenses set up, that might be a lot. So maybe let's shoot for 3 months. Start somewhere. Just start putting a little bit away where where you have, if something happens, you have cash that's readily accessible for you to get out of the hole before you even start thinking about how to grow your money. A lot of times clients come to me and they're asking, well, I want to get rich. I want to grow my money. Okay, well, let's see what money you have and let's see where it's going. Let's see how much money you have to grow. Because the money that's going to your bills, we can't grow that. That's going to your bills. The money that's going to, support your family, that's stuff we can't grow. So after you supported your family, after you put your foundation in place, what's left over after that? And that's when we can get into our, planning for the future, planning for our retirement, buying into stocks. Everybody wants to know about the stock market. The stock market is a great investment tool, but the stock market is risky. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have no money to risk in the stock market. You just don't. And I specialize in planning for people who do not have that money to risk. And the stock market is risky. There are other safe vehicles that you can use to grow your money. Now, it's not going to be as fast. Insurance and financial planning, it's not a get rich overnight thing. Rome wasn't built in a day. But we have to start somewhere. And the reason, and I'm going to take this back to life insurance, the reason life insurance is so important is because while you're working on getting out of the hole, while you're working on getting to that life that you want for your family, you want to make sure that if something happened to you yesterday, your family can take the ball and keep it moving. I'm sorry, one second. Let me. Very sorry. I have kids. I don't know what he's doing in there, but he sounds ridiculous. Close your door, sir. I don't know what's going on in here, but please keep it in there. But you want to make sure that while you're creating this plan, while you're trying to grow your money, while you're planning for the future, if something happened to you yesterday, your family can keep on going. And that's what life insurance does for you. You want to make sure if something happened to you yesterday, your kids can still go to college and go to maintain their dreams. If something happened to you yesterday, your wife can stay, or your husband can, your family can stay in their house. They don't have to lose their home, whether they're renting or owning. Especially if it's a two-income household. Then in this country, in this economy, we need two incomes. So imagine if you were to lose one, how much would that impact your family? And it's not something we sit and talk about. It's not something that we think about. And I know life insurance isn't really my topic for today, but when it comes to building wealth, that's in my opinion, and based on what I've seen, that's the quickest way. Our counterparts, our melanin lacking sisters and brothers, that must be my timer. Our melanin lacking sisters and brothers, they had a 400-year head start. And a lot of people like to say, oh, the game is rigged. The game isn't rigged. It's not rigged. We just don't know how to play. And they have a head start. They have a head start. Their parents, their ancestors, they're passing down these insurance policies, these inheritances, these trust funds, these annuities. They're passing down. They're passing their money down. They've been doing it for years. And slave masters used to put insurance on their slaves, because if that slave dies, that's loss of income for that slave master. That's a loss of income. So people would put insurance on their slaves, and that slave's family didn't get the money. The master's family did. So they have a head start, not only just by their lives and their ancestors, but also off the back of ours. And they, thank God they freed the slaves, but they freed us with no education, no, all right, now you can make money for your work. But nobody ever taught us how to use money, how to take advantage of it, how to save it, how to grow it, how to make it work for you. And back to legacy building, I think the easiest way, the quickest way to do it is to ensure that when one of us dies, our family is getting some type of money from it. Because right now, most of us, when we die, we're starting GoFundMes. Our family, or if Black man, Black woman gets shot and killed by the police, our families are paying the price. If a company, a big Fortune 500 company, were paying the prices for Black people losing their lives, things would start to change. The reason things are the way they are is because it's not costing anything to kill us. It's not hurting anybody. It's not impacting anybody's pocket. So nobody cares. Only our family cares, because we're the one that's losing it. Not only do we have to deal with the loss of our loved one, we have to figure out not only how to pay for the funeral. Forget the funeral. That's a one-time thing that you got to worry about. You got to figure out still how to pay the bills every month now that you've lost that person income, and figure out how to pay the bills every month while you're grieving. Wouldn't it be helpful if you had a lump sum of money coming to you? So at least you don't have to worry about that. I don't know how much time I have. Am I good on time now?
You got a little bit more. You can take about 5 more minutes.
Okay, good. Because I don't want to overspeak, because I can go on and on. I ramble. I've been in this industry for so long, and I've seen so many different things. And one thing that I've noticed is that the advisors, they don't come to our communities. They feel like there's no money there. But you know who's in our communities? The liquor stores, the Chinese stores, the tobacco products, the Newports, all the drugs.
Loans.
the payday loans, charging us high interest rates, the furniture stores with their predatory lending practices. They know that there's money in our community. There's money in our community. We just don't know what we're doing with it. And my goal as an individual, as a person, is to educate my community and close the wealth gap. Which is why I stopped selling insurance, because I want to be able to give that information for free. I feel like if I'm doing it for a profit, nobody's gonna receive the information the same. I don't have a dog in the fight anymore. I'm licensed, but I'm not contracted with any companies right now. I'm just here to educate. That's my goal. And I think that getting a term, even if it's just a term policy, get a term. And we hear so many different things about life insurance and how it works. There's so many different products. I hear a lot of stuff about IULs. Everybody wants to know about IULs, Index Universal Life. But IULs are kind of risky. IULs are risky. That's not a product for everybody. If you don't have any whole life in place, that's not a product. That's not really a product for you. If you don't know how your IUL works, how it's going to perform over time, that's not a product for you. And again, I'm rambling. I'm all over the place because I'm not sure who the audience is or where this conversation is going. And my mind is going out into the community, into thin air. So maybe there'll be some nice little clips people can take from this. Who knows where this will go? You know. But everybody wants to know about these IULs, and yeah, they grow. There's cash value you can borrow from. There's insurance products, permanent policies that you can borrow your money from. But if you live in paycheck to paycheck, you probably shouldn't be thinking about one of those products right now. You probably should be thinking about just a term policy. A term policy is cheap. You get a lot of insurance for a little bit of money until you make your way to where you can afford to invest more money into those more permanent products. That way, if something happens to you, your family is covered. Your family is covered and they got something to start with. All right. We didn't get to buy the house while we was living. But you know what? Granddad passed away. He left us $250,000. We put part of it in annuity. We put part of it on the down payment. We put some of this in the trust, and we put some of it in the stock market so that it's working, it's growing. We made sure that we covered all our bases, and now our money is working from us. And now we got something. And now we got something to work with. All because Granddad bought a $10 life insurance policy when he was 20 years old. And that's my time. I'm not. I hope this.
And I want to kind of recap. You did really, really great, you know. And so what I get it is really understanding the mindset to help break the financial struggle, because that's where we're really, really at. Is seeing where we're at, being able to identify where we're at, but then deciding from where we're at, what steps to take to get you to where you want to be. I think one of the biggest things that you had said, which really helped us shift that mindset from going from survival to strategy, is actually implementing something, putting something in place. That's the first step. But again, that first step is to identifying where you are at. And a lot of times, because even when you went back and you mentioned how in the communities where we grow up, we have the unhealthy food stores, we have everything in a community that's tailored to keep us in poverty. Nobody is given the strategy to help you go ahead and to do something different, but to examine where you're at. But when you have to sit down and you have to be real with yourself and you have to confront yourself and you say, okay, I see all the unhealthy options. I see all the payday loan stores. I see all the predatory lending, and I'm working with what I have. It's so easy to say, you know what, temporarily, I'm going to go ahead and settle for that temporary thing, then look for a strategy that may be longer term. But what it is doing for me in the long term is going to put me in a better financial situation. So where a community or an environment is suffering due to lack of provision, you're actually implementing something that eventually will go ahead and change the generations in the community, whether in that neighborhood, whether in that community, or wherever it is. But it have to start somewhere.
Right.
You know,
and
a mindset
with a plan.
Right. And you have to start somewhere. And it starts with a shift in mindset, because sometimes we'll choose comfort for right now, then long-term wealth or long-term success, because we have an immediate gravitation that we need to have something immediately. And because we have that desire, we have misplaced desires. That's exactly what it is. And we don't see the value in long-term planning, but the immediate gratification is what keeps us stuck, would keep us stagnant,
And you
and
know
which
what,
keep
Quadra,
us in the cycle.
let me stop it right there, because sometimes it's not even that. But
Hmm.
I come from poverty.
We come from
I
poverty.
We come from poverty. We come from poverty. I know how hard it is to think about planning for the future when you're
Hmm.
trying to figure out how you're going to
Our
survive
life.
until next week. When you're
Hmm.
trying to make sure, I can't think about how I'm going to retire or what's going to happen to my family if I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay my light
This
bill that was
bill,
due
that
20 days
bill.
ago. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So it's hard. It's hard. And however, I think these conversations are a start, because I did it. And if I could do it, you could do it. And he can do it. And she can do
She can
it.
do it.
And everybody can. And it's and a lot of times what I'm finding, and I'm about to start rambling again. This is about to be a rant. A lot of times what I'm finding is the Black advisors, a lot of Black advisors, they come into this industry well-meaning, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, well-meaning, but then once they start making money, they sell out. They don't want
They
to work
forget the
with the community
people.
because it's hard. It's
Hmm.
hard. Like,
But you know why? That's because one is a process, and you,
it's a,
even in it, you got to respect the process. But it can be easy to go ahead and get so, big headed once you finally get there. But you got to always remember why you started. And so that's going to actually lead me into my part that I'm kind of going into, which is
mhm,
why community is important to your legacy. And I think when we have the right mindset and the right focus, and we don't lose focus, then we understand the reason why we're doing exactly, or the anyone is doing what they're doing. So legacy, I look at it, is not just what you leave, it's who you leave it in, because somebody
mhm,
have to go ahead and carry that legacy. So I look at community as it's the container that will carry the legacy forward. So true legacy is not just the success you achieve, it's the community you empower to continue in whatever your vision in, whatever God gives you, whatever that vision is. However, however he have given it to you. So whether that's in business, whether that's in like some type of ministry, whatever it is, the legacy part that God has given to each of us individually to carry, because it may look different for everybody. However, God give me a legacy or a vision for me, my family, community, or whatever, that may look
mhm,
different than the way that he may have given it to you. So our true business asset is really the transformation that we kind of deposit into people, into our community, whether if you it's what you're going to leave behind, right? So we always think of it maybe as something that's tangible or financial, but sometimes it may not even just be those things, right? So legacy, I believe, is kind of a part of our story, right? Because each of us have a story. Everybody starts somewhere, everybody have something. And when you kind of realize that your voice, even your voice, what you speak, what you learn, what you've gained from just even overall in life, like we can look back and look at the experience you have gained now, and look at the experience that we have gained. When you understand where you come from, you understand that your influence matters, right?
mhm, mhm,
And so, because your influence matters, we kind of try to become intentional about that. And so, you realize that you want to build people, right? And so, we want to build people. We don't just want to build the platforms. We don't just want to build for, just the wealth and things like that. No, we want to build people because we realize that the impact that we're going to leave is more important than the income. And I think that that's why a lot of people sell out, is because they look at the income and they don't really realize the impact that they are called to make, whether that's in a community or whatever it is. And I'm going to keep on tailoring it to where we're at, because everybody may be in a different season or different
mhm,
chapter. People have different type of businesses, so it's tailored to whatever their business is. But you realize that purpose is not is purpose becomes active, right? It's not just some their radical thing. It's a active thing. It's something that you're always pursuing. It's something that you're always doing, even in your legacy. And so you may find yourself pretty much going from what to do to, how can I preserve this, right? How can I make this last? How can I make this thing last beyond me? My, maybe in my legacy, it may not just always be my kids, it may be a friend, it may be a cousin, it may be, somebody that's close to me that may be also called to be a part of the legacies that we are,
Mhm.
God is calling us to carry. So how can this be preserved? Because legacy is what we leave in people, and it will continue to live on once we're gone. So legacy also breaks the lie of I don't matter. So I look at it as being included in the visions, being included in the legacy. Just like I may have a legacy, but guess what? Again, on the flip side, I may become a part of somebody else's legacy. And
Right.
because I may become a part of somebody else's legacy, guess what? I matter in that legacy. And then I look at it in that way, that now guess what, purpose become more purposeful, and it becomes more personal, because it's like, okay, I am included in something. And so when that typically happens, you realize that, one, that people are attached to your obedience, so the part that you play, because you matter, you play a significant role in that legacy. You realize that there's also, guess what, there's destiny dependent on your yes. So your yes is attached to somebody else's legacy that may also be attached to somebody else's legacy that's long way down the line, attached to somebody else's legacy that's 3 to 4 to 5 generations. Because guess
Mhm.
what, now we're carrying something that came before us. And there may be at times when God may call us to create our own legacies,
Mhm.
or sometimes we're holding on to the legacy that was before us, so either way, however it is, it's knowing that even in our legacy, that somebody else is dependent on whatever it is that we are preserving through a generation. And so I kind of look at it as not for just today, also for tomorrow.
Mhm.
Whatever I'm carrying, whatever on the inside of me, it's also for tomorrow. I look at it as the purpose and our legacy is almost like a seed, right? So it's something that's being implanted, but the harvest is going to come pretty much later on. The same
Mhm.
way how when we consider wealth, it starts with a seed, right? It starts with an initial action. But guess what? Later on, it will be a harvest, right? And so even now with purpose, our purpose, what the part in the legacy that we play, we're just a seed. And guess what, there's going to be a harvest later on, because we're actually doing and carrying out the work that we're supposed to carry out. So I also look at it as purpose is why we start, but legacy is why we don't quit, right? So legacy is the part where, guess what, it says, you know what, I can't give up. Things may get hard, things may get tough, things may be going on even when you come to building your wealth, right? Look, things may be going slow, but I know at the end, I'm not going to give up on this, because and what I'm building and what I'm investing into, because eventually, guess what, I'm preparing for a legacy, even a legacy that I don't even know or haven't even seen, or I haven't even met yet, because guess what, is going to be carried on from generations to generations and generations, right? So legacy is what actually gives us the perseverance to keep on going when we don't feel like going. So it's pretty much the work that we're putting in today is going to outlive what we feeling, is going to outlive that feeling when we want to quit, but it becomes less of an option.
Mhm.
It becomes less of an option, right? Because actions today is not just about convenience, they're about continuity. So it's about continuing on, even when you don't feel like it, continuing on when you feel like you want to give up. Even in building wealth, there's no difference, right? There's no difference, because we already know, even in that it's not something that's going to be quick, but what is going to yield in the future is going to far outweigh the moments where you want to give up and the moments when you want to quit. So it's like the sacrifice becomes a seed, and it's not a waste. Sometimes when you're building things, even if you're building in life, if you're building a legacy, if you're building wealth, there may be times where you feel like the sacrifices that I'm putting in, guess what? It don't feel like nothing ain't happening. Nothing ain't, it may not look like nothing ain't happening. Like it may feel like it's a waste, like what's going on, right? And it begins, especially in the beginning stages when you're building wealth, or you're building your life, you're building your business, you're being active in community or whatever it is. And I keep on saying that because I want to make sure that I'm not putting us all in one box, because we have a
Right.
variety of people on here and probably other people watching, right? So I want to make sure that I'm not just limited it to just a certain type of, group of people, but this is for everybody, right? So guess what? All of us, sometimes the sacrifices may feel like it's a waste, but it's not. It's just a seed that we're planting, and eventually, it's going to be a harvest. And we've even talked about in Proverbs 13:22, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. But guess what? Not only in finances, right? But faith, values, principles, vision, moral integrity. All of these different things are, in all of these different areas are things that we are planting and we are leaving a legacy in. And I think a lot of times when the very thing that you said was that, a lot of people, they get to the point where they get the financial part get good, and they want to turn back, but they forget the simple things, the vision, why they started, the integrity, what they're playing, and that part of the legacy that we are called, or they are called to carry on, and realize that it's bigger than just finances, but it's all of these different areas. So legacy also breaks the cycle of self-centeredness, right? Because guess what? It's not just about us. Actually, it have nothing to do with us, but it's about those who are going to come after us. So legacy teaches us not to be selfish, not to be just worried about ourselves, but when we decide to be consistent, our consistency becomes a blueprint. It becomes a standard, maybe a new normal, because we're not building once we're building for somebody who, again, that I said, probably ain't even born yet, right? So
Right.
we're
Right.
building something, we're building a blueprint. And guess what? That blueprint that we're building, when they come in, it's going to be something new for them. you know, it's going to be something new. It's going to be something that they will be born into, because of the legacy that we are choosing to build today. Is going to be something for them to have, to grab a hold of, that they can run with, and it's going to give them vision. Okay. Well, they may add to it. Guess what? They may add to it. you
Yeah.
know they may add to that vision.
And
They may add to that legacy, but that's what they're supposed to do. We're supposed to leave them something that they can go ahead and grab a hold of, and if they add something new to it, guess what? They add something new to it. Long as it's continuing to go on, the legacy is still being carried on, the vision is still being fulfilled, and that's what really really matters at the end. So legacy also transform pain into an investment. So I think about it as every experience, every trial, every opposition, everything that you had to go through, everything that you had to overcome. And I was thinking about today, we had a when women pray. And to be honest, just like you can't really see who's on the screen now because the way that is all set up. I This morning I didn't know all the people that was going to attend. I didn't know the women that was going to attend. I was just sending stuff out, sending it to people. I didn't go online. I didn't like share everywhere online. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to have that pressure to do any of that. I'm going to just send this stuff out, and who show up, show up. And honestly, I was a little bit nervous.
mm-hmm.
I was a little bit nervous. And I was nervous because usually I'd be like, okay, who's going to show up? I'm like getting confirmation from people, and people like, yeah, and I'm just like at last minute, doing things and like, okay, shooting this, like, okay. And if they say they coming, they coming, sending the information out. And then like, okay. And guess what? It was a few of us on there. But you know what?
Yeah.
Even with me not knowing that, I kind of felt like, guess what? You had to overcome that feeling of wanting to know exactly who will be in there.
Mm-hmm.
You had to overcome wanting the people that you thought would be in there would be in there. I had to overcome that. And when I got to the other side of that, I felt like, oh, very victorious in this situation, you know? And sometimes in life, we're going through situations and we don't know how things are going to turn out. There may be trials, there may be tribulations, there may be opposition, but to still go through and continually push your vision, to push your legacy, and let things go exactly how God will want them to go and how turn out to be exactly how he want them to turn out. When we get to the other side of everything that we are putting in now to build, guess what? We feel victorious.
Mhm.
We're going to feel victorious. My God, we're going to feel victorious because what we overcome, it actually gives us language for somebody else's breakthrough.
I
It
can
gives
testify to
us
that.
it gives us language to somebody else's breakthrough. It gives
Mhm.
us courage to someone else's calling. You know, it gives us
Mhm.
courage. It gives strategy to help someone else and not just ourselves. So I look at legacy as it activates faith in for the future in us, right? Our future is dependent on our persistence, which is why we have to keep on going. We aren't building for just like right now. We're not building based on what we see or actually who even believes in us, right? It's not based on none of that. But we're building on what God promised us, the vision that we cannot see. And guess what? Who haven't even been born yet? I
Mhm.
don't know what my great, 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 great grandchildren, I don't know them. I'm not going to probably still be around when they're born,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
believe the seeds that I'm planting today will still carry on to that generation because I choose not to give up today.
Mhm.
And so true legacy is beyond sight, right? It's not based on the things that we see exactly right now today. It's not based on that, but legacy turns into generational wealth by what we are putting in and what we are planning today. So our community is our distribution channel, right? Because guess what? We can't do anything without community.
Yeah.
A strong community actually multiplies voice because guess what, we give sound to that legacy, and that builds, that actually builds movement. It multiplies effort, which leads to momentum, right? So guess what, the more we're doing what we're supposed to do, the more we're pushing forward, guess what, momentum is building up to keep on going. Momentum is building up to say, guess what, who can we go share with the next time?
Mhm. Mhm.
Who needs to know what it is that we have on the inside of us? Who needs to know the knowledge that we have? Who can we share what we've experienced and what we've learned and what we gained? You know, who can we go share that with? Who can we go and impart that to? It multiplies success, which leads to inheritance, right? Because guess what? Again, we can't do it alone. We may start, whether you're in your business, guess what, you may start it up by yourself. You may get a vision, you may have a dream, but guess what, it should multiply. It should multiply, and eventually it does multiply. But we don't give up. And I guess I want to share because I know sometimes, especially with the economy that with everything that's going on now and the way that times is changing, that it can be so easy to want to give up when we feel like life is going in a certain direction, right? If we believe that life is not going in the way that we desire them to go. But one, keep the faith and know that life is going in the way that God wants it to go. Know that we can't allow ourselves to give up, because I always think about it like this, what if the part that you are called to play, or whatever God is calling you to, imagine if you gave up in building your legacy. Imagine if you gave up and not continuing to push forward. Imagine if you lost hope in what it is that you're called to do, your purpose, your destiny, right? Guess what? If you lose hope, then you may be stealing from somebody else, because imagine that your obedience is not just connected to yourself,
Ooh.
but because you don't want to be obedient, you're now going to steal, okay, away from the part in the role that you were supposed to play in somebody
Somebody else's
else's
life.
life. And
Mm-hmm.
because your failure to obey what God has said is causing you to steal from somebody else, because maybe you have a vision that God has given specifically to you. Maybe you are a part of a plan that God said is specifically for you to play. What if your obedience or your lack of obedience is stealing from somebody else? Imagine if you were supposed to be a part of somebody else's vision. Imagine if God called you to be a part of somebody else's destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if we don't arise to the occasion every time that God tells us to arise to the occasion, that we're now our disobedience is pulling away from what it is that we are attached to.
Oh my gosh. I need my one of my friends on here because I was just sitting here telling her this last night.
Like,
And
what if?
you have to listen. You have to listen to God. Like, you have to listen. You have to train your brain to hear his voice.
Yes.
You have to train yourself to listen and to be obedient like that. And I swear I was just saying this to my friend today. Look, that voice that you hear, that thing that you think is your first mind or your first instinct, that's
That's God. God
that's
be
God.
talking to you.
That's God. That's not you. That first instinct, that's God telling you what to do. Don't ignore it. No
Mm-hmm.
matter how crazy it sounds. Like,
Because sometimes it will sound crazy to people. I always think about when Noah was out there and he was building, and the people always thought that he was crazy and saying that, oh, this ain't going, this ain't. But you know that God is speaking to you, and you know that God is telling you certain things, and you have to obey what God is telling you to obey. But your a refusal to obey because people may think that you're crazy, or people may think that you're not hearing from God. But you have to know that
you have to know.
your
Mhm.
obedience to God is so important, and it don't matter. That's why I think that God was giving me that. Guess what? It's not what people may believe, but do you believe what God is saying? Do you believe what God is speaking? And I think it have to get to a point that yes, God gives us confirmation, but we have to be sure and know it for ourselves when he is speaking to us, when God is giving us something, that we have to act on what God says. We have to know when God is speaking, and we have to move on what God is speaking, especially in a time now. Like, obedience is so important. And one thing that I know for sure is that obedience is better than sacrifice. Okay. So we have to continually making sure that we are obeying what he said, and know that our part may be a part in something. And because our part is a part in something, guess what? Our yes matters. Okay. Our presence to be there and do what God calls us to do, it matters. Like, literally, all of this stuff matters. And I think that sometimes in life where we get to this point where we really don't understand how important obedience is. But obedience is so, so, so important. And it's important to your legacy. It's
Mhm.
important to what you're building. It's important to the assignment that God is calling you to.
It's
Sometimes it may
important to
look
the
different.
world, to
Yes,
the
in the world
world,
that we live in.
to the
And
world that
oh
we
my
live in.
God, yes.
Important to the world. And it's so crazy because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about a time where I was not obedient and how it's impacting me now. And
Mm,
I'm thinking about how if I would have listened,
mm-hmm.
things would be different.
Different. Yeah.
Things would be different.
Yeah.
And about how when I listened,
Mm-hmm.
how things went,
Yeah.
you know. So it's important. And I think honestly, I think before we can even speak about legacy, we got to appreciate the right now and our
Now.
purpose now, because we have to know our purpose before we can even think about leaving a legacy.
You see, yeah. You
And if
got to
we're
know
not
what he
listening to
calling you
God,
to.
how do we find out what our purpose is? How do we even we can't even imagine a life. We can't, and this goes back to the economy and everything goes back to slavery. Everything goes back to slavery in this country. I'm going. Everything goes back to. They label us as 3/5 of a human, so a lot of us don't even value our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
A
I
lot of us
wish you
don't.
was there with us this morning when we had our When Women Pray, because it was just so amazing how you even said that, and hearing his voice and getting to this point, because sometimes you have to follow the instructions because God
Yeah.
gives you strategy. But it takes to draw closer to him. How you said you got to know when he's speaking, but you won't
Mhm.
know if you don't take the time to draw closer to him and to know what his voice sound like. But
Sounds like
when you start to
yes,
know what his
yes,
voice sounds like, then you can go ahead and get the strategy, and then you can go ahead and get the instruction, and then you can go ahead and apply what he is saying. But you
saying
have to be
yes.
able to follow the
And you have to train
instruction.
it from the
Yeah.
little things,
Mhm.
like the little things, like take an umbrella with you. Like
That's him.
that's God. And maybe it won't. Maybe it's not raining. Who knows? It's not. It's
But
not
the
even president.
instruction.
But take the umbrella.
Because
Take the
guess
umbrella.
what? Once you
Like,
obey that, then he gonna tell you something else, and you're gonna hear more clearer, and then you're gonna go ahead.
exactly.
So the more that you obey, the more instruction he can go ahead and he can release to you. The more he
Exactly.
can
You
tell
got to make
you
sure you listening first
first
before he can start giving you some real instructions. You
instruction.
gotta like can't even do something as simple as taking. And this is a true story. I'm saying the reason I'm using this is a true example.
I
Like
believe
if
you.
you can't listen to something simple as take the daggone umbrella, how am I trust you to lead the world?
Yes.
Like,
How am I going to trust you with what I want to bring you into? How I'm going to trust you with well? Because to be honest, he says that you have to be able to even manage the little first before you are able to handle much more. And if you can't handle the little, and this is what I even try to explain, even in relationship with God, to pray, to listen to the instruction, to obey the instruction, right? It starts with that little bit before he can increase it more and more and more and more. But if you can't take a moment to set aside to come to something that's going to teach you his ways, bring you in closer relationship with him, to make sure that you're hearing him, or even if you need confirmation, sometimes you don't need the confirmation, but it's good to have it, or to be even around people who can impart something into you. If you don't take advantage of those things that's even available, or even just some time with him in a day, right? Sometimes it don't even have to be this big old thing, right? Let me just have a little bit of time to do something. If I can't take 25 minutes out of my day to set aside, even to share or give somebody some knowledge, and I know that this is what he want me to do, why would I expect him to give me more of anything else when I can't even give him what we use today, even for 25 minutes? Something so
Right.
simple and practical in a way like that, and I want to try to say it in a way that everybody can explain it, but something so simple and practical just like that is, I mean, simple obedience. Sometimes we make it so complicated, but sometimes it's just down outright simple obedience. And
Simple obedience.
imagine if the lack of simple obedience is the very thing that's making us miss God every time God want to move or do something in our lives. But because the lack thereof of simple disobedience, okay, is why many people miss him. Could you imagine? Could you
I
imagine?
can't imagine. I can't
Right?
imagine. I know firsthand. I know
Girl,
firsthand. Like
we got to get it together.
I
We
know
as people got to
firsthand.
get it
That's
together.
crazy. I gotta have some
But
calls to make.
I don't want to hold us long. I think we had a great night on here tonight. I did want to go ahead and kind of do like a little raffle, but what I'm going to do is I already know who I'm going to go ahead and do it for today. I'm going to go ahead and put us in a text, and what I want to do is I want to bless them for Thanksgiving. And so I was trying to get more people on, but I really didn't keep up with the live on the Instagram or in the group, so I really don't know, but I'm just going to do whatever God is placing on my heart, because I believe how we're saying simple obedience. I believe that that's what I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do. It's just going to be simple obedience. But everybody that's on here, I thank you guys for getting on here with us. Me and Aaliyah has been doing sessions before we actually got to this point where I went live for almost for a whole month. So we've been going at this for a while, and I'm
It's been
sure
a
we'll
while.
come
It's
back.
been about 2
Yeah,
months.
2 months now, right? Okay. And so we've been coming together and we've been meeting, and this is actually our first time going live. And I want to make sure that I say this before I go ahead and let us get off of here. The reason why we're doing this is because right now this is where I believe that the heart of God have us at right now, right?
Mhm.
Pouring back into our community, letting our community know that there are options for them. And, a lot of times when it comes to these areas, a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about it because people are not being educated on it, or
Yep.
just maybe where you're at may not be a good place for you. And a lot of times people deny where they're at, honestly, because people like to say, oh, things are perfect in life, but and life is not always perfect. Okay, people go
Mhm.
through things in life. You go through trials, you go through tribulations, and we want to educate the community. We want to see that mindset and the cycle of financial struggle, the cycle of financial lack, we want to make sure that those things, that we're educating on those things too. And as a believer, and I know this, a lot of times we think that, oh, okay, and I believe that God will provide. God is our source. God is he provide, right? Even I'm telling people all this time that the government may be shut down, but God is not shut down, right? The kingdom of God is not shut down. So, but I also want to make sure that we are teaching people to be proactive in the things that, or being proactive, right? Getting ahead of things, because things can happen in life that we are never expected for. Things happen, okay? And so I want to make sure that we are sharing it and make sure that we are teaching people, just teaching them some of the things that we weren't taught, and how to be able to shift their mindset from just shift the mindset. I'm gonna leave it as that because I don't want to say
Right.
something out. But we want to make sure that we are just shifting the mindset of people. Okay. So you guys have a blessed night. We'll put something together again really, really soon. And you guys have a great, great day. Okay.